There's a pattern in history that has destroyed three global superpowers in the last 500 years. And right now, in 2025, the United States is following that exact same pattern, stage by stage, decision by decision, almost like we're reading from the same script that led to catastrophe every single time before. In 1590, Spain was the richest empire on earth. They controlled half the world's gold and silver. Their military dominated Europe. Their currency was accepted everywhere. Within 80 years, they were bankrupt, a second-rate power that never recovered. In 1914, Britain ruled the largest empire in human history. The sun never set on British territory. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Within 40 years, the empire was gone. The currency collapsed. They became America's junior partner. In 1991, the Soviet Union was the other superpower. Nuclear weapons, global influence, satellites spamming the globe. And then it ceased to exist in just 900 days. Not from war, from economic implosion. 3 times. 3 superpowers, 3 complete collapses. All following the exact same sequence. And here's what should terrify you. The United States has already completed 5 of the 7 stages. We're not approaching the pattern, we're deep inside it. This is the story of how empires die, why they always think they're different, and why the math says we're next. And it's happening faster than anyone wants to admit. Before we go through the pattern, you need to understand what imperial collapse actually looks like. Not in textbooks, in practice, what it means when a superpower dies. Imperial collapse doesn't start with invasion or military defeat. It starts with economic exhaustion. The empire extends beyond its ability to maintain itself. Military bases in 150 countries, wars on multiple fronts, promises it cannot keep, debts it cannot repay. At first, the decline is invisible. The currency still works, the military still wins battles, the government still makes promises. But beneath the surface, the foundation is cracking. Resources are misallocated. Productive capacity shrinks. The best and brightest leave. Then comes the acceleration. Allies start hedging. Enemies test boundaries. Trade partners seek alternatives. The reserve currency status erodes. And suddenly, the advantages that made you powerful become vulnerabilities. Your currency, once demanded by everyone, comes flooding back home. Your military, spread across the world, becomes unsustainable. Your promises, once guaranteed by strength, become empty words. That's not theoretical. That's what happened to Spain, Britain, and the Soviet Union. And it happened because they made exactly the same decisions we're making now. They believed their power was permanent. They overextended militarily. They debased their currency. And they refused to accept reality until collapse was already underway. Let's look at how it actually happened. 3 times, the exact same way. Let's start with the first global empire, Spain, 1500s to the 1600s. This is the original blueprint. After Columbus discovered the Americas in 1492, Spain became the first true world power. They conquered the Aztec and Inca empires. They seized control of the richest gold and silver mines ever discovered. By 1550, Spanish galleons were bringing home 200 tons of silver per year. By 1600, over 400 tons annually. Spain controlled the money supply of Europe. The Spanish real was the global reserve currency. Everyone wanted Spanish silver. And this is where the pattern begins, with a country that controls the money of the world and believes that makes them invincible. King Philip II, ruling from 1556 to 1598, had more money than any monarch in history, and he spent it on empire. Stage 1, military overextension. Spain fought wars
everywhere, simultaneously. Against the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean, against France and Italy, against Protestant rebels in the Netherlands, against England's navy, wars in the Philippines, wars in the Americas. By 1580, Spain had military commitments on 4 continents. The cost was staggering. Half of Spain's revenue went to the military, and still it wasn't enough. Stage 2, currency debasement. The Spanish crown couldn't pay their bills with taxes alone, so what did they do? They debased the currency. They started mixing copper into silver coins. A coin that was supposed to be pure silver became 50% copper, then 75%. The face value stayed the same, but the real value plummeted. By 1600, Spanish silver coins contained barely any silver. Merchants stopped accepting them at face value. Inflation exploded. Stage 3, debt spiral. Spain borrowed constantly from Italian bankers, from German bankers, from anyone who would lend. By 1557, less than 20 years into Philip's reign, Spain declared bankruptcy. They defaulted on their debts, restructured, and kept borrowing. They declared bankruptcy again in 1560, again in 1575, again in 1596. 4 bankruptcies in 40 years. Each time, they promised reforms. Each time, they went right back to borrowing and spending. Stage 4, loss of productive capacity. Here's what people don't understand about Spain's collapse. They had all the gold and silver in the world, and it destroyed them. Because when you have unlimited money, you stop producing. Why grow food when you can import it? Why build ships when you can buy them? Why innovate when you can just spend? Spanish nobility considered work beneath them. Manufacturing declined, agriculture stagnated, all the wealth flowed to importing goods from other countries. The gold and silver that came from the Americas went straight back out to pay for French wine, Italian silk, Dutch goods. Spain became a conduit. Wealth flowed through them, but none of it stayed. By 1600, Spain was producing almost nothing. They were entirely dependent on imports, entirely dependent on silver to pay for everything. And when the silver mines began to deplete, when production dropped, the entire system collapsed. Stage 5, social decay. With the economy failing, crime exploded. Beggars filled the streets of Madrid. Productive citizens emigrated. The best minds left for France, England, the Netherlands. Countries that were building, creating, growing. Spain was left with bureaucrats, soldiers, and priests. No one creating wealth, everyone consuming it. By 1640, Spain lost Portugal. By 1650, they lost the Netherlands, their richest territory. By 1700, the Spanish Empire was a shell, still large on paper, but economically dead. They went from the world's superpower to a secondary power in less than a century. And they never recovered. Spain today is a regional European country, pleasant, cultured, but irrelevant on the world stage. The descendants of the conquistadors are now a tourist destination. That's what imperial collapse looks like.
Let's jump forward 300 years. Britain, the 1900s, the empire where the sun never set. At its peak, Britain controlled 25% of the world's land surface, 400 million subjects. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. Every major trade contract was denominated in pounds. Every central bank held British bonds. London was the financial center of the world. And just like Spain 300 years earlier, they believed it was permanent. But they were already following the pattern. Stage 1. Military overextension. By 1900, Britain had military commitments everywhere. India, Africa, the Middle East, China, the Pacific, the Caribbean. They had to defend territory on 6 continents. The cost was enormous. And when World War I started in 1914, Britain faced a choice: stay neutral and let Europe destroy itself, or jump in and bankrupt the empire to win. They chose to fight. World War I cost Britain over $40 billion. That's $1 trillion in today's money. They borrowed from everyone, mostly from the United States. By 1918, Britain owed America billions. The creditor had become the debtor, but they'd won the war. They kept the empire. They thought they could rebuild. They were wrong. Stage 2, currency debasement. The pound sterling was supposed to be backed by gold, but the war had drained British gold reserves. They'd shipped gold to America to pay for weapons, food, and supplies. By 1920, Britain's gold reserves were half what they'd been in 1914. But they tried to maintain the pound's value anyway. They went back on the gold standard at the pre-war rate in 1925. The problem? The pound was overvalued. British exports became too expensive. Manufacturing declined. Unemployment rose. And the government had to keep interest rates high to defend the currency. This destroyed the domestic economy. By 1931, they couldn't hold it anymore. Britain abandoned the gold standard. The pound lost 25% of its value overnight. The global reserve currency had just admitted it couldn't keep its promises. Stage 4, the debt spiral. Britain never recovered from World War I debt, and then World War II started. Another $120 billion in costs. More borrowing from America. By 1945, Britain owed the United States and Canada over $30 billion, more than Britain's entire GDP. The war was won, but the empire was finished. They couldn't defend it anymore, couldn't afford it, couldn't maintain it. In 1947, Britain gave up India, the crown jewel, the source of wealth for 200 years. Gone. Over the next 20 years, they lost everything. Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, the Caribbean. By 1970, the British Empire existed only in history books. Stage 5, currency collapse. The pound kept falling. In 1940, 1 pound equaled $4.03. By 1950, $2.80. By 1970, $2.40. By 1980, $2.30. Today, about $1.27. The global reserve currency became a regional one. Britain tried to maintain the pretense: a permanent seat on the UN Security Council, nuclear weapons, a special relationship with America. But everyone knew the truth. They were a former power, a museum of what used to degrade. The empire was gone, and it never came back. Now, let's look at the most recent example: the Soviet Union, 1945 to 1991. After World War II, the USSR emerged as a superpower: nuclear weapons, massive military, control over Eastern Europe, satellites in space. And they believed they were the future. Communism would bury capitalism. The Soviet model would dominate. For 45 years, they competed with America, matched as military, built more tanks, more missiles, more troops. But beneath the surface, the economy was dying. Stage 1, military overextension. The Soviet Union spent 15 to 20% of its GDP on the military. That's 3 times what America spent. They had to match American technology, American reach, American alliances, but their economy was only a fraction of the size. They were in Afghanistan, propping up Cuba, supporting Syria, Vietnam, North Korea, Angola, Ethiopia. Everywhere America had influence, they had to counter. The cost was unsustainable. Stage 2, economic stagnation. The Soviet economy stopped growing in the 1970s. Oil revenue kept them afloat, but nothing else worked. Factories produced junk. Farms failed. Technology fell decades behind.
By the 1980s, the Soviet Union was importing grain. A country with some of the best farmland on Earth couldn't feed itself. Why? Because central planning doesn't work. Because innovation dies under control. Because no one produces when there's no incentive. Stage 3. Currency collapse. The ruble was never a real currency. It couldn't be exchanged internationally. Even Soviet citizens didn't trust it. They used dollars when they could get them. The government had to buy foreign goods with gold and oil because nobody wanted rubles. By 1985, oil prices dropped. Soviet Navy reserves were depleting. They were running out of real money. Stage 4. Loss of empire. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. Eastern Europe left. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, East Germany gone in a year. The satellites that gave the Soviet Union strategic depth vanished. The government couldn't stop it. They were broke. Stage 5. Complete collapse. On December 26, 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. 900 days from Berlin Wall to complete dissolution. No war, no invasion, just economic implosion. The military couldn't be paid. The government couldn't function. The ruble became worthless. A superpower with 30,000 nuclear weapons collapsed from internal economic failure.
The pattern played out again. Overextension, currency failure, debt, loss of empire, collapse. And here's what should keep you awake at night. The United States is following the exact same pattern, stage by stage. Let me show you. Stage 1. Military overextension. The United States has over 750 military bases in 80 countries. We have troops in 150 countries. We're committed to defending Europe through NATO, defending Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, fighting in the Middle East, countering China, countering Russia. Our military budget is $850 billion a year, more than the next 10 countries combined. And it's not enough. We're stretched thin. Equipment is aging. Recruitment is down. And we have commitments we can't fulfill. If China invades Taiwan, if Russia pushes into NATO territory, if Iran closes the Persian Gulf, we can't respond to all of it simultaneously. We're overextended, just like Spain, just like Britain, just like the USSR. Check. Stage 2. Currency debasement. In 1971, President Nixon closed the gold window. The dollar became pure fiat currency. Since 2000, the money supply has increased by 400%. Since 2020, we've printed over $6 trillion. The dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since 1971. We're not mixing copper into silver coins anymore. We're just printing unlimited paper. The mechanism is different. The result is the same. Debasement. Check. Stage 3. The debt spiral. The United States owes $36 trillion. That's 120% of GDP. Interest payments alone are approaching $1 trillion per year.